Du skal lige acceptere.
Yes, hello, and welcome to this conversation about the new Anubis Gate album, Covered in Colors. And I have with me today, we are here, both of us, Kim and I, two different places in Denmark. And we're here to talk about this album, which was released last Friday. And it's all a cover album, as many of you may have heard. And it doesn't really have anything to do with Covered in Black, except it was a kind of a lightweight counterpart to that one. So Kim, hello.
Hello.
How did this? Yes. How did we come about to do this album, really?
Well, yeah, as you said, really, it's. I don't know if it's a kind of consequence of Covered in Black. And this is where we might get into, we're four guys in the band, that opinions might differ a bit about this. But for me, it was kind of, I went through a depression when we made Covered in Black, and I felt so productive. But I hadn't, after Covered in Black, but I hadn't really written anything yet. And, but I needed to be productive. So I had this idea that we choose some songs that we knew would work well for ANUBIS Gate, and rearrange them, and then we might do an EP. And then we talked about, okay, we pick two songs each. But that, of course, didn't really happen. It was more like a project that was a roller coaster. Suddenly it had, as without us really wanting it to be an album, it became an album, because we have this thing in ANUBIS Gate that is to trust the process, to deliver the answers, and we've always done that. So for me, it was absolutely necessary to do this album to kickstart the writing of the next album that we are making now, which it also has done, because we've written well over an hour of music. So it's shaping up to be a double album, actually, the next one. So, but it was an interesting project to manhandle other people's songs instead of our own.
Yeah, and so the idea wasn't new to us, really, because we already, since 2007, we've always done a cover, at least one.
Yeah, and we kind of, the way we've approached those covers is that we have put them in the drawer for later use, and that was that I would say that was the main different things, that when we discovered this was going to be an album, instead of songs that we could use as B-sides or something, it kind of, it kind of became an identity unto itself, this album. And I don't know when that occurred to me. When did it occur to you, Henrik?
I don't know. I from the get-go, I thought it was a great idea just to have like 8 songs, 2 by each member picked, because also we had an idea that it could actually be our first vinyl release. Because
that's true, yeah.
Onto a vinyl, because normally our albums are too long for that. But with 8 songs, it might be possible to amass it onto a vinyl. But then things got out of hand, and I remember we talked about it once, and you've done a couple of extra songs, and I said, well, no, it doesn't fit with the 8.
Oh, that's true, yeah. Slight crisis there.
Yeah. Forget about it, you said. Go on, do some more, and so we did.
Yeah, I think you're right. That's kind of where the roller coaster ride really started with this album, because in a way, you're right, it got out of hand, and there was no controlling it. And I mean, if we had tried to stop it at that point, I'm sure everything in the production line would just have closed down, and we wouldn't have got any further. With the next album either, we wouldn't have got any further, because once we really get going, it's kind of unstoppable. And that was certainly the thing with this project.
So you mean the process wouldn't have gone so well to get, to get this leisure time from writing if we only done the 8 songs?
Yeah. I mean, because when we, as you say, when it got out of hand, there was nothing else but to just ride the train to the end station. You know, there was no way to get off. And
the only thing stopping us was the 74-minute CD limited.
Yeah. I mean, there could have been more songs. I mean, when I listen to the album, it doesn't feel long to me, actually. But of course, the creators are not always the best judge of a product. But I always listen very closely to the album and say, is this too long? Or, I mean, A Perfect Forever had an extra track, which was only on the South American release, and it was cut away because when I listened through it, I was just thinking, this is too massive. I can't handle any more Marshall stacks in my ears now.
All right. So should we begin to discuss the songs on this?
And that's what we'll do. We'll tackle the first 7 songs of the album now, and we'll go through the songs and what we remember about recording them, and why we recorded them. And the first one, Still Live in Mobile Homes, that was your pick, Henrik, and also by a very large amount your arrangement. So why did you pick that one?
Yes, when we first talked about doing this cover album, the first thing I remember, I thought, can I in any way get anything by Japan or David Sylvian amassed onto this? Is there any song? Because I've always been a huge fan of this, and especially the Mick Kahn bass, fretless bass lines that are so original and innovative. Actually, it easily transformed. It's actually the bass line that is transformed into a metal riff on this song, and it worked surprisingly well. I'd say it's gone up a bit in modulated a bit up. What do you call it? Transposed. Sorry, transposed. Yeah, to fit my voice better. But otherwise, it's pretty much sounding like ANUBIS GATE doing this song, and it fits well for metal, I think. What do you think?
I think it's a very well fit, and it's an obvious album opener. I'd say it's. I mean, if people didn't know it was a Japan song, they would assume it was a ANUBIS GATE song. Sure. And that goes for many of the songs, I think, here. If they don't know the originals, they are going to hear our songs like, our versions like it's the original. And also, one thing I noticed, that when I was going to play, and when Michael and me was going to play that line on guitar, which was in your demo of the song, it was really hard to play. It was a hard rhythm to, it's a very, very strange groove. All those 16th notes at the wrong places. So that was a fun challenge. And Michael does a killer solo. It's Michael playing the solo. And this is your first keyboard solo in ANUBIS GATE. And I love it.
Oh yeah. But it's practically the same notes that are played in the original song. So it's not very original in any way there. But it's more arranged solo, I'd say, also from the creators. So it was a fun thing to get this done. And I don't know if it's my inspiration from this music that makes it, not sounding so far off ANUBIS GATE, really. Maybe
it might very well be, because I mean, the thing is with all those covers, in my opinion, is that since a lot of those songs and a lot of those bands that we've covered obviously are also inspirations for Anubis Gate. It means that we can also make them sound our own. It's not as if we try to do a Creedence Clearwater revival. So, I love Creedence. I mean, they're one of my favorite bands, but they're not an inspiration for the thing we do in Anubis Gate. So if we had tried to cover Born on the Bayou or something, it wouldn't have sounded like Anubis Gate. And that was, I mean, if we couldn't make it sound like us, it didn't go on the album.
Right.
So, but Henrik, I know you're a big fan of David Sylvian, and I also, not just in the way you write the melody lines, but I also, when I read his lyrics, sense a sort of a poetical inspiration from the way he angles his lyrics. And is that true?
Could be. I don't know. I haven't really thought about it. But probably yes, because I listened so much to his music and lyrics. So there's definitely a chance there for for inspiration. So get out there and listen to some Sylvian and Japan, please.
I know you're gonna kill me when I say that my favorite David Sylvian album is a live album he did with Robert Fripp, and you hate that album, I know.
Yeah, it's the not his best, I would say. But never mind. Let's move on.
Yeah, but yeah, but that's the link to the next song.
You could say that, because that is actually a song by King Crimson, which I know you especially have been listening a lot to. And one of the first progressive rock bands ever really to come out. And is that the reason why you got interested in prog, or did it come later? I mean, King Crimson.
Yeah, I think for me the entrance to prog was the A Trick of the Tail album with Genesis, actually, which we will touch upon later. And then, I mean, then King Crimson is a natural progression from that. But when I was young, and because King Crimson, you know, they can do anything from very, very composed things to completely freeform yeah. things. And you know, when I was a teenager, I played a lot of freeform collective improvisational music. So I kind of did that before I knew there was anybody else doing it. I thought I was unique, which of course I wasn't. I mean, so that was fun for me to discover that someone was playing music like that, other than that strange little band that I had going there. But yeah, I've always, since I discovered them, I've always loved King Crimson, and Red was kind of an obvious choice, and because you can make it even more devastating with 4 sets of Marshall stacks. And you know, we did speed it up a bit, and we did give it some more power. And the fun thing was when I had to learn the guitar parts, it was actually it's not just standard scales. So that was a good challenge. It's not hard to play, but it's hard to remember because the scales are so strange, you know. It's kind of, you know, whole tone scales with extra notes added and things like that. But I mean, it was a fun song to do, but not the most difficult. And I would say this was one of the songs that we rearranged the least, I would say.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. It sounds a bit updated in sound-wise, of course, and a little more heavy a lot more heavy than the original, I would say.
Oh yes, and the original is kind of really slow, and it there's only one guitar, and it's much updated, and we also allowed ourselves to put some loops and percussion stuff in there, and so I would think that we did move the song to another place. So we played a lot of around a lot of with the production of the songs and filters and stuff like that. Which is how I think we made it into something that sounds like ANUBIS Gate.
Yeah. It needs lyrics and vocals. I should have done a vocal lyrics for it.
Yeah, you should, absolutely. I mean, red.
Yeah, because it's a funny thing because there's not really a standard melody like for example Chromosome that we're doing later. That would be hard to do. It sounds almost as if it could have been a backing track for a song.
I mean, that's the thing. I love things like that because when you listen to music, it's like, when if you have 100 colors to paint with and you take 90 of them away, then the remaining colors, they kind of fill the spectrum. And if you listen to ambient music, which there is, sometimes it's almost just like sound effects, you kind of get a feel for the structure anyway. It's like, oh, that's the chorus and that's the verse, and that's the same thing with this song. It kind of has a verse and it kind of has a chorus, even if you could have fitted a vocal over it. And sometimes, by removing something from the music, you just make everything else bigger. And I'm not much of a believer of the less is more. Sometimes more is more. But in this case, it's kind of funny how your brain reworks music to make a structure anyway, even if it's not conventional.
That's right. Yeah, right.
So let's move on to the next song, Henrik.
Yes.
Which was kind of one of the odd ones out, I would say. So it's a song called Plantage in Danish, because it's Danish lyrics. And you choose that song and it's your arrangement. So how on earth would one choose a Danish song for a band that is normally in English? Tell me about that.
It's a good question. I think we've talked about it before. It could be fun to do something in Danish, just one track, some bonus track of sorts. And when this cover idea came up, it was actually this and Still Life. That was the two songs that I picked. It's by the Danish band ANUBIS, which is a kind of an art installation. They're very experimental, and actually this is the only track that I really like from ANUBIS. I don't think it's that interesting. I think they lack melodies and stuff. Really, it's getting too experimental for me anyway. But this track is a standout, and I always liked it. And David Fricke from Rolling Stones magazine, he's really into ANUBIS. That's strange because it is in Danish and he can't understand a word of it, but he's been very interested in ANUBIS. So and it has this dark mood to it that I thought would be perfect for making into metal. So that was the key thing about it. And another thing, Henrik Sennevald's vocals are so paper thin, so hush, and I thought it would be interesting to really take it out and do something opposite to that, really shout it out. So that's how it came about, really, ANUBIS.
Yeah, and I agree. It's I think the original is great too, and I think it's kind of, when in our version it's almost like a doom metal song, and then your clear vocals over it, and it's for me it's one of those instances where it could have been sung in French or Chinese or anything, the music and the melody transcends the lyrics anyway. I mean, the lyrics are great in Danish. It's kind of, it doesn't really have a meaning. It's just words that put together a feel, like I'm the Walrus with the Beatles. There isn't any meaning to it. But I mean, those. It's probably the most heavy song on the album in terms of old school. And so I really love your arrangement of it, and I kind of knew right away when you sent it to me that it would be a killer one. So it was just great. And one thing I think is fantastic also about our version is if you can really hear Morten letting rip on the drums in the fast section. It's it kind of sneaks in, but if you listen to what he's playing, it's so complex. Without him, of course, ever losing it, because Morten never loses it. So I love that about it, and yeah.
Actually, it has inspired us to do something on the next album, because I remember when I done it and you heard it, you say, please do a song yourself, write something inspired by this, because this is great. And I did, and there's a song probably for the next album that is directly inspired by the process of doing this. So that's another way of looking at this cover album, that it is actually inspirational for us to do what comes next.
Absolutely, I think alone in that respect, this album it's a catalyst for the next one, and. I could be wrong, but in my mind, I don't think we would have ever done the next one if we hadn't done this one. So, I mean, I may be wrong, but I mean, to have 1 hour of music being produced as a result of us taking the ride, doing the covers album, alone in that respect, the cover album is worth it.
Yeah,
I think,
right.
For us as artists.
Exactly.
And it's great, the song you wrote, the song that is inspired by this one. And I know I shouldn't tease much. Kind of, it's one of the songs that I think it could be an album opener or something. Oh, whoa! in my head, it's the album opener until now, and then of course Michael will come with a devastating heavy riff, and that will be the album opener anyway, because that's how it's always. That was how it was on Covered in Black. I was having all kind of thoughts, and Henrik sent this song, and not Henrik, Michael, of course, yeah, and that's the one.
That in 2022 or something.
Yeah, we hope so. Yeah. So, right. but it's one of Plantage, one of my favorite tracks on the new album. It really is. And I mean, for me, I've also seen that it's kind of, you are really getting confidence as a keyboard player on this album, which I think is great, because your ideas are not the same as mine, and that for me, it just means that we will have even more variation, and I always love that. So that's one of the other great byproducts of this album, I think. And I know even Michael is getting a bit into playing keyboards on some of the songs that he's writing. So I think we are crossbreeding with what we can bring to the table, even more, and that's always exciting, I think.
Next album is going to be an electro
boogie.
Yeah, everybody playing keyboard. It
will be a Kraftwerk cover album.
Or Slayer album gone electro. That would be something.
Yeah, it really would. Kerry King will kill us. He will kill us after he hears this album, actually. Or maybe he's gonna love it. I don't know. Probably he'll never hear it.
The other two from ANUBIS are not here today. No, well, let's go. Let's move on.
Let's move on.
Yeah. To a song called Experiment, originally by Voivod. And Kim, we've always had our disputes about Voivod. I like the first album. You like War and Pain. You like Dimension Hatred the most. So you came first with picking a Voivod song for this album. Dang.
What would you have picked? What would you have picked, Henrik?
City or something. Oh,
Okay.
that's always been a favorite of mine. But never mind. So it's an experiment. And you actually ended up singing it. Wow. Because I obviously couldn't do something in that way or something. I don't know. It worked really for this song. So how was it to be a singer of a song?
Nerve-wracking, I would say. For me, I'm still waiting for the reviews to come out and say, "Oh, he shouldn't have done that," and what does Kim think? And Christ, that's horrible. What?
Could have done them all, they say.
Absolutely, I'm not gonna say that. I mean, you could also say that I got that out of my system now. So no, I mean, for me, Voivod was Dimension Hatred was. I mean, for me, it was a groundbreaking album. You know, before that, I mean, I always played a lot of stuff my whole life. You know, but to hear that you could play chords that was that rich and complex in metal, it was. I clearly remember hearing it for the first time at a party in Aalborg. And I was just thinking, gosh, I hate that. Actually, that was my first. I mean, oh, that's some random chord crap, and I can't deal with it. And I just couldn't. My mind couldn't let go of this strange album that I apparently hated. So I had to buy it because I was thinking, as something I need to. And of course, after a couple of more spins, it clicked with me, and it changed my view on music. And that's one of the most, for me, life-changing musically albums I've ever heard. So so for me, it was obvious that we should do a song from that album. And I don't. It was kind of funny. What was and I was kind of surprised that you didn't really know what to make with it. But I sent you a demo, and actually that kind of and you were kind of trying stuff, and that demo kind of became the album version in regards to the vocals. But I discovered that I can sing brutal vocals. That was the discovery there. And, you know, we might use that, you know, for, you know, a brutal chorus or something in the future. We might not do it. But that was the thing I took away from it, is that there is a style of metal vocals that I can sort of sing without it being embarrassing.
Yeah, I tried to sing it, and maybe some of my vocals are down in I don't know. Is it layered? My vocals.
A little bit, of course. There is in the first chorus. There is the bit that is obviously you.
Yeah, sure.
Sure, and but there might be a high octave in there, a couple of seconds somewhere. But I ended up mixing out everyone else of the vocals that you doubled with, because. No, I mean, and that's the great thing about, in my opinion, ANUBIS Gate. You know, we might use a lot of time on an idea, but ultimately, if it doesn't work, we'll drop it.
Yeah, sure.
And there are really no holy cows in ANUBIS Gate, and we're never a band that argues a lot. So we might have very, very mild, amusing arguments amongst ourselves, but we always kind of, I mean, if we argue about something, it's usually a sign that something is not good enough, actually.
Yeah.
So, and one of us might be a bit stubborn and say, no, I want this in, but ultimately it'll be dropped. So that's, but we never really, I can't recall us ever having a harsh argument. Ever, actually. No.
Maybe because we each other at all. because we live so far away.
Yeah, that might be it, because we never got the in Danish it's called øvelokale kulder, which is kind of rehearsal room craziness.
Yeah.
We never really get that, because ANUBIS Gate works in another way. Of course, if we do live shows, we meet and rehearse, and but we're kind of very efficient as a band, I think, in what we do. And of course, we are old men, and we have careers and we have house loans to pay, and that plays into that too. We would probably, it would be very different if we were 17 years old.
Yeah, sure. Or 70.
Yeah, that too. Then all songs would drop below 50 beats per minute.
Sure. All right, let's move on to something else. Chromosome. And that's another instrumental. Yeah. And I remember this song from my early days of musical education. That was something that the guitarists put in front of me and say, hey, this is great. I remember this. And I don't remember any other songs by Mike Stern. Funny enough. I don't. This is the only one. Was it kind of a hit song for him, or I don't know? Why did you go for this? Because this was obviously one of your picks as well.
For the same reasons that you just mentioned, actually. It was, it's a difficult song to play. And that was kind of, in pre-conservatoire classes, that was, the song, can you play Chromosome? And I couldn't. I mean, because chromatics are actually really difficult to play on guitar. And I couldn't, and I was too lazy to sit down and learn it. But that was kind of, yeah, it is his super hit, isn't it? And when you think about fusion music, that's one of the classic songs of jazz fusion rock. It is. And but I'm sure most people will not have heard about it. And so many years later, kind of 5 or 6 years ago, I set about rectifying my laziness of the youth and actually learning the song. And I found that technically it gave me a lot. And already then I was thinking, this could be a fun song for ANUBIS Gate to cover, because we do it well, but it will be kind of, left field, as you say, for ANUBIS Gate. But because we rarely ever do instrumentals, and there are 2 on this album, actually. It's very funny. But
this is almost the first one picked for this in some way, because you thought about that years ago.
Yeah, that would be safe to say. It kind of existed in my mind as an ANUBIS Gate cover song before we thought about this project.
Yeah, right.
And I mean, I like everybody plays frighteningly well on that song, and Henrik and not Henrik, sorry, Michael. That's me. Always confusing names. Michael and me are trading solos. It's kind of, in that way, it's really the ethos of heavy metal. It's really 80s heavy metal, show off heavy metal. It's really in that song, even though it's a jazz fusion classic. And that's funny, and I always enjoy Michael's solos more than my own. So, and I think it was fun to hear him play something different. Actually, I was looking forward to see how he would approach playing on this song. And of course, he just blows me away as usual. And I love that. I love being blown away by you other guys in the band. That's it's one of my, when I hear stuff, when I think, whoa, that's crazy. I love that. It's one of my favorite things about ANUBIS Gate. So
that's one.
So yeah, but Chromosome is fun track to play, and
right.
I think actually, but most songs on this album are actually, as concerning Morten's drumming, I mean, he recorded this album with there's a lot of difficult stuff in there, but he used 1.5 days to record it. And Jacob and I were sitting kind of in disbelief, looking at Morten zooming through all this song, and we kind of, do we really need another take? It's great. And okay, next song. And I was thinking, okay, here's a difficult part, and okay, we probably have to use some time on it. And he was just, boom, okay, and we were kind of, it was amazing. And you know, my Morten is obviously a fantastic drummer, but and he's played on so many great albums, not just ANUBIS, but Paramaze, and so much stuff. And he's a session drummer too. But his favorite drumming, in my view, of all time, you know, my favorite drumming of his is on this album, because he could also do a lot of things that he normally wouldn't have the space to do in metal. So I mean, there's all those in this. I love the drum mix. Jacob did the drum mix of this album, and you can hear all his little, you know, ghost notes on the snare drum. It's all in there, and normally you'd filter that out because it'll just be noises in the wall of Marshall stacks, and it's all in there, and you can hear all his little nuances. And he did so many things that I've never heard him do on this album, and that was great too. I love it. I also think your best vocal is on this album ever, actually. But yeah, that's Atlas, which we'll get to in the next part. But to me, it's like you always sing fantastic, but that one is kind of, you know, you really peak on that one.
No, thanks. Thank you. Yeah.
So, but let's move to the next song before we pat ourselves too much on the backs. So the next one is kind of a curious choice in a way, but then again not, because if we can do Chromosome, we can also do the next one. But the next one is Glamour Profession, which was your choice. So so tell me about that.
Yeah. Since the 90s, I've always been fascinated by jazz harmonics in other stuff than jazz. I also like kind of jazz, fusion jazz especially, but I'm more fascinated with taking out these harmonics and put it in some other context. And actually, since we started in ANUBIS Gate, my ambition has always been to involve more jazz into metal, because I think they're kind of opposites in some way, and I would like to hear other things than just fifth going around like you did in most in the 80s. So it was interesting to take a song like Glamour Profession, which is a Steely Dan song, and they are kind of the pinnacle of jazz pop fusion in the 70s, and this one is from 1980, the last album. We actually have 3 songs from 1980 on this one. Yeah, this is one of them. So how could it be? How could you mendel these things together? And actually, I think it works really well. I talked to someone, one of my friends that are also into this kind of music, and I said, how is people going to react to something like this? People, and he said, actually, if what I usually hear from you guys, they are not that surprised, because you do this already kind of in many songs, these modulations along in the song. So you wouldn't think it would be too strange to people. What do you think? Have you thought about it?
Well, I'm kind of, you know, when I listen to the way you arrange your vocal lines and harmonize them, it's always been like, because I've had the privilege of listening to them in isolation, and you know, and they were always very jazzy. It's always, I mean, the harmonies are very complex, and you're not afraid to have the odd note in there that, you know, when you hear it on the whole, it sounds beautiful, but when you hear it in isolation, it's kind of, is that really what's going on? It's very, very dense and things like that. So I mean, there's always been, as you say, an undercurrent of jazz harmonics somewhere in almost each song of ANUBIS Gate. And I mean, what I think is funny about this one is that it's kind of is kind of split in two ways. There is the guitar part, which is very regular heavy metal, and then there is we allowed ourselves to have kind of one keyboard part through the whole song with an e-piano stacked with a stringer synth, and all the jazz harmonics comes from the way that moves in and out of the guitar riffing, and that was kind of a new approach actually. So to kind of be that obvious about it, and that really it works very well, and I think it's one of those that it sounds, even though it sounds so jazzy, it sounds so Anubis Gate. But it was at first I found it to be a curious choice, but it worked out great. And sometimes it's just about perseverance with the song. If you think, okay, maybe it doesn't work right now, but it will work with if we persevere with it. And we always allow ourselves to do that too. Persevere until it's great or dropped.
Right. So it gets a fair chance.
Yeah, it got a fair chance, and it really works out. And there is a fun anecdote to this one, because I didn't know the original. And after you recorded the vocals, I remember texting you saying, "Oh, we should get some female vocals on it." And you texted me back saying, "Okay, like in the original." And I was like, I didn't know there was female vocals in the original. So we put it in there because I thought it would fit well. And but I imagined those things just like they were in the original. Yeah. So that was funny. And you had some ladies come around singing those fine vocals, and we'd never done that before. And so that was I like that too.
Yeah, and it was interesting because I actually thought to avoid the female vocals in there, because I didn't want it to be too similar to the original. And then you came along and say, we need female vocals there. I was like, all right, if both Steve Dan and Kim Olsen thinks that this needs female vocals, I will do it. So I had 3 of my students actually perform here. So this is the second album by ANUBIS Gate which has only guest musicians that are female on it. That's curious.
Yeah, that's a thought. Yeah. Oh.
They're fine on this one.
Yeah. And all female. What does it say about us?
Don't know.
I promise we're not trying to pull birds.
No.
Promise.
Let's leave it at that.
Yeah. Moving on before this gets embarrassing.
To the last song for this session, and that's one we talked about earlier. That's Entangled by Genesis, and this is a band that both of us have always enjoyed, especially the 70s output of the band. Do you agree? That's the pinnacle. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, I love all Genesis.
All
I love some more than other, but put any Genesis album on and I'll enjoy it. And but actually, for me, the We Can't Dance album I love it. It's so beautiful. I don't care if it's not prog. I don't give a F UK. I just love that album. But I mean, for me, the pinnacle was always the A Trick of the Tail album. And that's a perfect album all the way through. Absolutely note perfect. And Entangled is just one of my favorite songs ever, and it's a beautiful song, and I knew we could do a good version of it, but we did some interesting stuff with the coda, because we took something that sounded like the coda of Entangled. We wrote it ourselves, but we took something that sounded like it and moved it to another song that we'll discuss in part 2. And instead of the original coda of Entangled, we moved into Pink Floyd, David Gilmour's guitar solo stuff. And I mean, that's one of the things that I like about this album, is that we actually dared to to really be radical about some of the songs. And
Yeah.
I mean, it was fun to learn the guitar parts and stuff like that. It's I love our version of it, and
it's actually a hard one to sing. I found out it
yeah,
wasn't that easy to. I think it was probably the most difficult song on this album for me as a vocalist to do right, to have to sound, to make it sound right, to
yeah.
make it like satisfying to myself, really. So
Why is that?
I don't know. Maybe there are a couple of intervals. You know, it was kind of jumpy melody. So maybe that's in the verses. Maybe that's it. I don't know. I just had a hard time nailing it really. So, but yeah, I think the version of it is okay that we done, and the first part of it is very like the original, you could say, and the coda takes it somewhere else. So one more of those updated sound-wise kind of songs with maybe a little more power to it than the original.
Yeah. I mean, of course, you know, there are in the original there are no drums at all.
All right.
And we put lots of drums in there, and one of my I mean, sometimes. I mean, we are a very serious band. We are very serious about what we do. And one thing that I wanted to avoid with this album is that people would have this kind of, ah ha ha ha, that's funny, because I mean, yeah, that's just not us. Like we can't play a blues. That's not us either.
No.
So but then of course. I always enjoy sneaking things in that only I hear that I actually think is a bit funny. And the thing in this song is that there are wood blocks. Those you know, book, 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 and they are all over the second verse actually. And I don't know if you even heard them. But if you know what to listen to, they're there, and you know they're played in tune, and yeah, that's kind of funny.
I would withdraw the album.
What?
You have to withdraw the album now.
Yeah,
because
yeah. I'll call Nightmare and say, "Cut off the shelf with it."
Yeah. I wouldn't have it. No. So yeah. Did we come to an end here with the first section?
Yeah, I think we did, and I'm looking forward to rambling.
Yeah.
On about part 2, and I hope everybody thought this was interesting. And of course, what we forgot to say is that write any questions you have while listening to this, and we'll answer them in the comments when we air it. So, but that was nice.
Yeah.
And we hope to see everybody the next time.
Yeah.
Bye bye, people.
Bye bye.